Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Inspired by You MindKite Podcast. And like every other week, I've got a fantastic guest with such an inspirational story, one that's definitely touched my heart and made me think about my life. Mark Ormrod is a Royal Marine veteran. He is a 4 times gold Invictus medal winner. He's a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Would that be right, Mark?
Correct, yeah.
Brilliant. And he's author of the Man Down book. There's so much more about Mark, but we're going to get into it in his story. There's charity work, there's fundraising, there's supporters pages. There is a lot going on. And this is why he's such an inspiring guy and why he's on the podcast. So welcome, Mark, and thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you, mate. Thank you for having me on.
I've watched, I was saying to you before, I've watched just about every single video, every single interview since I was actually made aware of who you are, about your story and your journey. And every single one I watched, although it was on the basis of the same thing, was absolutely, my mind was away. The things you've achieved, the things you do. I would just like you to go into a little bit of your backstory so that people actually know, sort of what journey you've been on and what actually happened to you. As well.
Yeah, absolutely. Before I do, I'm just going to apologize. I've got a little bit of a sniffle, so I might be a bit, snotty, but I'll do my best to fight through. Well, like you mentioned, I'm a former Royal Marine. I joined the Royal Marines in 2001 when I was 17, straight out of school. Was very fortunate in that going through the training, I never sustained any injuries, and I managed to make the grade every time that we were tested. So I got through in one hit, and I completed my training in October that year. 4 weeks before I finished my training, we all witnessed 9/11. So we knew that we were going to be doing the job that we just spent the last year training to do very quickly, which as a young, arrogant, cocky, brash 18-year-old was quite exciting. But I finished my training at my Green Beret at 18, trained to go to Afghanistan in 2002 on an operation called Opticana. Didn't go, came back, went to Iraq in 2003 on Operation Telic 1. So I was involved in that initial push over the Iraqi Kuwaiti border and involved in that initial invasion. Came back from there and then was preparing for the birth of my first daughter. So I had a bit of reflecting time, looked at my situation. I thought to myself, I've been quite lucky here. I've managed to earn my Green Beret. I've been to combat. I'd also represented the Marines at heavyweight boxing. I'd trained in the Arctic. I'd been on exercise down to Virginia to work with the Americans and some other allied forces. So I'd crammed a lot into 5 years. And now, I was looking at becoming a father. So I thought, okay, time to leave. I was 21, thought I could go out and start a new career relatively young still. So it seemed to fit. Life didn't work out as I had planned, as often it doesn't for a lot of us. So I separated from my daughter's mum, flew out to South Africa, retrained as a bodyguard. I spent 6 weeks out there undergoing some intense training, came back, got a job as a nightclub doorman, and started looking for work in the close protection world. Again, not everything went smoothly. It was the time when the nightclub security industry was being regulated by the SIA. So there were a lot of rules and regulations, and there was a big crackdown. I think they were the police in particular were trying to get rid of the old school, bullies and thugs that worked on the doors and make it a professional place to work. So I ended up getting in a lot of trouble. And hand on heart, 99% of the time, I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. But it was happening too frequently. And I panicked. I was living on my friend's sofa at the time, working for cash in hand, trying to survive, waiting for the bodyguarding to pick up, but it never did. And so I panicked and I went back and rejoined the Marines early in 2007. Now, when I rejoined, I went to a unit called 40 Commando, who are based just about an hour and a half from my house up in Taunton in Somerset. And they were next on the rotation to deploy to Afghanistan, which was great. You know, for me at that time in my life, the way things were, that was exactly what I needed to get out of the country, get away from all the distractions, start reprioritizing my life, come up with some sort of plan, and then come back from the deployment and just relentlessly go after this plan and build my life to where I want it to be and where I think it could be. So I went to the unit, did all the pre-deployment training, got ready to go. And then on the 7th of September, 2007, we deployed. We deployed out to Afghanistan to spend 6 months working in Helmand, trying to bring some stability to the region and some security to the good people that live there.
How was the conflict at this point in time?
Kinetic is the word I think we use. Constantly evolving, constantly moving. It was just relentless, mate. Like, I can see why. I'm very fortunate in that I'm on top of my mental health and I don't suffer with any of that stuff, but I can genuinely understand why a lot of people struggle when they get back, because you literally go from fighting every day. Like, and I'll give you an extreme example, you know, of what I mean by fighting it when you're not prepared. You know, I remember running out my bed or what we call a cot, 3 o'clock in the morning in pants, flip flops, with my helmet hanging off my head, running down to the sentry box to get involved in a firefight at 3 o'clock in the morning to help my friends out, and then engaging the enemy for an hour in my underwear. Do you know what I mean? It goes, and that's the kind of stuff going on all the time. Sometimes you'll be fully kitted up and you go out on a patrol and you're prepared for it. Other times you just got to do what you got to do and get amongst it. And, you know, I didn't last the whole 6 months. We'll talk about that in a minute. But from going from that for 6 months every day, some guys doing multiple tours, 2 and 3 back to back. The Americans were doing 12-month tours, and then coming back to the civilian world where everything's just safe and cozy, but you're always alert. And, you know, someone cuts you up in a car and gives you a bit of attitude, and you're like, your whole mindset is you've got to stop yourself. You've got to hold yourself back, because you're like, this man's a clown. He's got no clue.
And people don't understand what you're going through at the time. How did you feel at that point in time though? Because you said you were struggling doing the door staff thing, and you went back to what you thought was that secure foundation, and it almost excited to go out to Afghanistan for that trip. But then coming out your bed at 3 a.m, firefighting in your boxer shorts, is, you know, the feelings must have changed at that point, or how did you feel?
No, mate. I felt good, because anyone that listens to this, right, who's military and been on the front line, or even those that haven't, there's something unique about being surrounded by extremely well-trained men, right, of the same mindset, that like the same banter, who live at the highest standard and will stand back to back, shoulder to shoulder with you through anything, right? And they'll put you before they put themselves, right? There's something really special about that. And so when those things are happening and when I'm in that environment, I thrive. And where I struggle is coming back. And I don't mean this to sound disrespectful at all. And when I say this, I'm generalizing. But then you come back to the civilian world, and for example, you're working on a nightclub door, and you've got some. Can I swear on this podcast?
There you go. You talk how you want to talk, Mark.
So you've got some gobshite spitting in your face and saying, "Oh, I used to do your job," and you think you're a tough guy, don't you? And you have to really just get a grip and just be like, stay calm, just relax. Or someone you come out and you get a job, and in the military, you're always there for the bloke left and right of you. But, you know, sometimes, not always, again, I'll say this isn't always, but in the civilian world, people will do what it takes to climb that ladder in work over you. Do you know what I mean?
And I think what you've said there, some people, myself included, can search their whole life for this trust honor, dignity, you know, and
Right.
a group of solid people around you. And they say, you know, you become the average of the 5 people you spend time with. But trying to find 5 exceptional people in normal society
Yes.
is very difficult. You know, I strive for that myself. I look for it on a daily basis. Luckily enough, I have some good people around me. But in your situation, finding these people, as you said, highly trained and people that want to excel with the same mindset, I can understand why that's a fantastic place to be.
And what's funny, excuse me for not knowing this, but are you a full-on civilian or ex-military?
Full-on civilian.
So you'll probably find with that mindset that when you do try to find those people in your peer group will look at you like you're some sort of weirdo. Like, what are you doing? Why do you want to be around those people? And you're like, because I want to level up and I want to live the life that I'm supposed to live. And they don't understand it. And some people to a degree get threatened by it. And then they're like, oh, he's changed. Jamie's different. He's changed. It's like, damn right, I'm different. I'm not going to stay the same my entire life. I want to get different. I want to get better. I'm going to grow and improve. And I need to be around people that are going to drag me up, not drag me down. And it's hard, mate. Because I always say to people, you know, one of the key things you need to do to improve your life, your mental health, is get around good people and ditch the morale vampires, the people that suck. It's like, I had a really good analogy of this. I sound like I'm being really negative, but I heard a really good analogy of this the other day when someone was talking about crabs climbing out of a bucket, right? And I've never seen it before, but apparently if one crab gets to the top of a bucket, the rest of them grab him and pull him back in because for some reason, I don't know, they just do. And that's kind of what it gets like in life sometimes. And you have to look hard for those people that are doing it better than you and just try and infiltrate that group and get around them and just level up.
I totally agree, and I don't think it's negative at all. I think it's something that people need to understand and listen to, and it's okay. I literally just posted the same thing on my socials saying it was a kid that I knew when I was younger from my area, and he actually literally put on one of my posts, "Big man, you've changed." And I said, yeah, it was 18 years ago was the last time I seen you. I bloody hope so, you know. And I was thinking, what have you not changed in 18 years? You've not evolved in any way at all. That's really not living, you know. And so let's go back to your journey, because I'm still fighting to hear this story, you know.
So while we're in Afghanistan, you know, our job was the same as the units, the army units, and everyone else that had been before us, and it was to defend what they're called forward operating bases. Ours was forward operating base Robertson, FOB Rob. Defend that place. We have an AOR, area of responsibility, and we'll go out into that AOR every day, every other day. We'll be on patrols. We'll be looking for enemy locations. We'll be looking for weapons caches. We'll be gathering intelligence, providing security for civilians, all that kind of stuff, and basically doing whatever the chain of command tell us. And we had great success, you know, for the first 3 to 3.5 months. Loads of, you know, firefights with the enemy, never even got a grazed knee. You know, no one that I was working with got injured or hurt. It was brilliant. Morale was high. Christmas Eve, we got tasked with going out on another patrol, but we had been confined to our base for about a week and a half, I think, because a couple of lads had injured themselves, just silly things. One fell off a truck, twisted his ankle. A couple of guys got ripped out to go on R&R, which meant our manpower was down. So we couldn't defend our position and proactively mount foot patrols. We didn't have the manpower. But when the manpower got boosted, we instantly went and got ready to go on a patrol. It's just to get out and stretch our legs. Now, the idea of this patrol, it was really search and destroy or anything like that. It was leave camp at the rear entrance, 2 sections, 8 men in each section, one go north, one go south. We were going to patrol the immediate perimeter of the camp. We weren't allowed to push any more than 300 meters out. And then both sections would then meet at the front entrance of the camp. So the opposite side. And then we just secure the location, get back into camp and finish up. Next day being Christmas Day, we had mail and all that kind of stuff to open. We were going to try and celebrate. So very, very basic, low level, easy stuff. So the time came, they opened the rear gate. I was second in command of the section that went north. The other guys went south. and we went out and we did our patrol. About 4 hours into it, both of these sections now found themselves at the opposite side of the camp, ready to finish up for the day. Now, my section just happened to be on a piece of high ground. It was a piece of terrain that we called the North Fort, one of our target indicators. Beneath us was Forward Operating Base Robinson. And then beneath that, quite some distance beneath that, was the other section that we left with. So because we're on high ground, we're in a very tactically advantageous position because we can see all around us if there's any threat approaching, and it's easier to fight going down a hill than it is up. So our job was to give them protection while they peeled back into the camp. They would get behind the perimeter wall, they'd be protected, they'd look after us, we come off the high feature, peel back in the camp, job done. All real low-level basic stuff we've done a million times before. So we're up on the high feature. The section commander, Corporal Sean Helsby, takes his half of the section and starts giving them what we call fire positions and areas of responsibility, arcs of fire, sorry. I took my half, and right in front of me, about 4 meters in front, was this little bowl in the ground. Now, normally, if you're on a patrol and you go far and you stop for any period of time, even if it's like 30 seconds, you'll get behind cover, like a wall, a tree, a building, a shrub, whatever it is, something to give you what we call cover from view and ideally cover from fire. Now, because we're on this high feature, it's like a ridge line, we had none of those luxuries. So in my mind, I thought, okay, we get in the little bowl, get on our bellies, we're up high, no one's going to see us. This is the best protection that we can get given the terrain. So I jump in, all the lads start taking fire positions. I had a couple of things I had to check and run through before we went fully farm. They gave me the thumbs up. They were happy. Did a few more checks just to make sure we were in all-round defense, and if there was any small arms attacks, we'd be good to go. And when I was happy, I walked over towards the position that I'd selected for myself. Now, as I got there and I went to get down to my stomach, as I put my right knee on the ground, I knelt on and detonated an improvised explosive device. Merry Christmas.
This was all on Christmas Eve still. And what was that?
Yes.
What happened from that point? From your memory?
It was intense. It was intense. So if you imagine the terrain in Afghanistan, very sandy, very dusty. So this device exploded and it created like a dust cloud, like a smoke screen. So I couldn't see anything. You know, this thing had gone off. I knew an explosion happened, but I was blinded temporarily. No, I had no pain. No pain at all. And my fight and flight had kicked in, my adrenaline had spiked, and my gut instinct was that I'd been attacked. So straight away, I think, find out where the attack came from. Start firing in that direction. Everyone will see where I'm firing. What they'll do is they'll then start firing. We can make some sort of tactical withdrawal, get somewhere safe, and then figure out how we're going to fight through this position and neutralize the enemy. Now, where I was, I knew the terrain. I'd been operating it for 3.5 months. I've observed every square inch of that area in one form or another. Behind me, about 600 meters down beneath me, was a small rectangular forestry block. Everything around there, around that forestry block, was just flat mud fields. So in all that chaos, I thought, if you're going to attack us with like a mortar or a rocket, if you've got any sense, you're going to be in that forestry block because we can't see you. You've got cover from view and cover from fire. So I start saying to myself in my mind, turn around, turn around, turn around. ID the enemy, start getting the rounds down. And after about 5 times in my mind of saying, you know, turn around, turn around, turn around, even though I couldn't see anything still because of the smoke screen, I knew that I wasn't moving. You just know, don't you? But I didn't know why. So I just thought, okay, let's wait for this smoke screen to clear. Let's look and observe what's going on. Let's make some real quick calls on the ground and let's get everyone out somewhere safe so we can figure out what to do. So we got to about chest height, and this all happens really quick. I'm saying it like it's like I'm just sat there calmly doing it's chaos. And he gets to about chest height, this this smoke screen. And I look around and I'm panicking. I'm full of adrenaline, just praying that none of my friends had been hurt or killed. I couldn't see anyone. They'd all been blasted out of the area. So I carried on waiting. Nothing else to do. So the smoke screen eventually got about 6 inches from the floor. It hit the floor and it disappeared. And as it disappeared and cleared, I looked down to where my legs should have been, and they had both been completely ripped off from the knees down. Now, if anyone listening is ever been in some sort of traumatic incident, like a car crash or a fall from a height, they'll understand what I'm going to say now. It's a very surreal experience, especially when you're not in pain. So your eyes are looking at this unbelievable sight, right? That's happened to you, but you ain't in any pain, and your brain can't process it. And I just remember sitting there looking like, what am I looking at? What is this? This is bizarre. What's going on? Am I asleep? Am I dreaming? I didn't have a clue what was happening. And then, this is like 2-3 seconds. I remembered my team again. So I just went, forget that. Look out for the lads. And I looked around to see if I could see anybody. And as I looked over my right shoulder, I saw the section commander. Now, we had been through training together in 2001. We were great friends. We've been friends for 20 years. I looked at his face and he was clearly in shock at what he was looking at. His friends sat there just torn to pieces, blood and plasma and fluids just draining out of me. And I'm trying to figure out everything that's going on. And I'm thinking, I've just looked at this, but this isn't real. So why is he looking at me like that? He looks like he's in shock. Maybe this is real. And a million things going through my mind. So I went to look back to my legs, just to give myself that final kind of signal, like, yeah, this is happening. And as I got to like the 3 o'clock position, I saw my arm like lying there in the sand, and it was still attached, but from my bicep down to my wrist, my entire arm was just torn open and the bone was gone, completely gone. There was flesh and tissue and muscle hanging out everywhere. And my hand was still attached to the wrist, and it was in relatively good shape, considering the state my arm was in. And for some reason, I picked my hand up and I held it in front of my face. Still not in any pain, just like severe discomfort, like crazy pins and needles. And I just kind of moved it around a little bit, and all the reality of the situation just come crashing down in a one moment. And I just dropped my hand in the sand and just screamed, like pure frustration, because at that moment, that was the moment it clicked. And I'm like, we're not under attack. You're the knobhead that stood on the improvised explosive device, and you're probably going to die now. And then a crazy evacuation ensued after that. It's funny that the things that go through your mind, right? I've read the report that we were working with American Special Forces, and one of their jobs was to clear the area afterwards and write a report. There were 6 other devices in this area that me and the lads were walking around. It was the crater, this little bowl, it was 12 feet deep by 15 feet around after the explosion. So my evacuation was never going to be straightforward. Add to that the fact that we're trained in that situation not to get emotional and to go tearing in there to help your friend, because you risk setting off other devices. So you've got to be unbelievably professional. And that's what the lads were. One guy was straight on the radio, calling in what we call a 9-liner, like a casualty report, and getting a medic scrambled out to me and a helicopter. The guy closest to me is straight on his belly, gets a bayonet out. He starts prodding the ground and marking a safe route left or right for when the medic gets there, so the medic can run straight in. One of the other guys is coordinating the bodies that are left, creating a defensive cordon in case there's an AK-47 attack and we can take out the enemy that way. And everyone just did everything perfectly like they were supposed to do.
The whole team's absolutely on point right now.
Oh my God, yeah. Yeah. And the thing is, right, you will fuck this up 9 times out of 10 when you're practicing it. But when you need to do it for real, it is unbelievably slick the way the lads operate. Like,
you're still
it's
here
mind blowing.
You're still here today to tell this story. So that tells me your team is on point and someone got to you in time to save your life. Because now, you know, you've got your arms almost off, you've lost your legs, you know, that's serious injuries to, you know, to even survive. And being here just now, I'd like to hear a little bit about that, because there's someone's really, really done their job. Well, your whole team has, you know, but I'm sure there'll be more responders there.
Yeah, so they did everything they needed to, and the medic got to me because we were so close to the camp. He got to me very quickly, and he scrambled up onto this high feature. He dived into this crater, and he starts putting tourniquets on my leg and my arm. He gave me some morphine because it was starting to hurt a little bit at that point. And he asked me to help with the tourniquets. It's one of the things they do to keep you responsive so that you don't just fade out and die. They keep you moving and keep talking to you. So I tried doing up my arm tourniquet, and it was a really pathetic attempt, but it kept him happy. And then he went to move me onto a stretcher, and he hooked his arms under my armpit and he dragged me over there. Now, that was the first time I felt pain. And the only way I can describe it is what I imagine it would feel like if you took a screwdriver, you jammed it under someone's kneecap, and then you started ratcheting down on the screwdriver. And so I just, you know, I asked him very politely to put me down while I was in pain. And I looked down to my right leg where it was coming from. And in the sand, in the dirt, it was what looked like a little piece of red rope covered in dirt and dust and claret and blood. And I followed it through the ground, and it went into my boot. And so I picked it up, and my foot was still in my boot. All my shin and everything. Imagine if a blast came sideways, it just destroyed everything from my knees down, shins, tibias, fibula, all that. But this little tendon or nerve was still attached to my foot that was in my boot. So he had to pick that up and put it on my stomach to put me on this stretcher. Somehow they got me off this high feature. I don't know how. I had my eyes closed the entire time. They threw me into the back of a vehicle. And on the way back into the camp, it was quite a steep incline. And these are not tarmac roads. These are pothole-ridden dirt tracks. And if you don't drive a certain way, you have to be quite aggressive at points. Otherwise, the ground will crumble underneath you. So the man driving, he's left to right. He's slamming the accelerator down. He's doing what he needs to do. I'm getting thrown all over the back. And then a doctor fell out the back going up this hill. Now, I went out after him. But as the bottom of my back hit the tailgate of the vehicle, the man driving swung around to grab something to hold me in the vehicle. And he ended up grabbing the femur bone that was coming out my right leg and kind of held me half in, half out. Now, he left the medic. That other section we left with earlier in the day, there were 8 heavily armed men at the bottom of the hill. So he was safe. He knew that. He didn't just leave him and go. He drove me to the HLS. And the last thing I remember is the helicopter landing and the heat that comes from the exhaust, the sandstorm that gets created from the propeller blades, and then the mechanical noise of the tailgate dropping. And that was the minute that I blacked out. And later on, a couple of years later on, found out that I actually died before they got me on there.
So these people have done their job to keep you here with us, you know, and done it to the point. And I'm impressed by the British military. I'm impressed by the operations you're doing, you know, and I think it's you deserve a lot of respect, you know, and the stories like this that really send it home that it's not just some lads camp, you know, and it's real out there, you know, it's very real out there. So I'm really glad that you're still with us and you've managed to get to this helicopter. Can you tell us a little bit about, so you were saying about your recovery there, you know, 2 years later you realised you died, and when did you really come to the realisation, you know, I presume you've went to hospital at this point, and when did everything really just, you know, become seriously apparent to you?
Before I answer that, do you mind if I just tell you a little bit about the back of the helicopter? Because
absolutely,
you know, all the lads that are on the front line back when we were heavy fighting, you know, they got the spotlight, but these medics are just another level, right? So I get thrown on the back of this helicopter, and there was another guy that was injured, and he had shrapnel in his back and his upper arm. And the way they prioritize casualties in a wartime situation like this is if you got a guy who's dead and a guy that's dying, you have to just ignore the dead guy, because you might have two dead guys if you focus too much attention on the wrong person. So they felt me for a pulse. I didn't have one. They tried putting intravenous lines in my veins, but they'd all collapsed because of the blood loss. And they put an oxygen mask on me, which should have steamed up if I was breathing, but it didn't. So that's when they called it and said, right, this guy's dead. All our attention on the other guy. When one of the medics walked past me to get some equipment to go and work on the other guy, Stu, he saw my eye flutter, which to him meant that my heart was beating. So he alerted some of the other crew, and then they came and they performed a procedure on me. This is the incredible thing about it, right? This procedure had only been cleared for use 3 days prior to this incident. It had never been used on a casualty in the field before. It had only been practiced in a safe, sterile, clinical environment, right? And what it involved, if you can't get an intravenous line into somebody's veins, you'll take some drills and you drill into their tibia and their fibia and you insert a line there. So this is going to be, you imagine, this is going to be insane enough, right? No one's ever done this on a casualty, ever, right? Now they get to do it, but guess what? This casualty hasn't got any tibias or fibias because he just had them ripped off by a landmine. So they're like, what do we do? So they, again, this is like next level bravery. They're like, right, we'll try his hip. So one went in the front, one went in the back. They drilled into my hip bone. The line didn't bite the first time because they said the skin was too loose. So they stretched it, went back in again. Within 3 minutes, I was awake, responsive, answering questions. Apparently, one of the things that I said, which made everyone laugh and smile, was that my ass was hurting. That's apparently an effect of mass amounts of morphine. It makes your asshole really hurt. So they kind of smiled like out of relief and like, oh my God, everything's like working out. It's supposed to be working. He's back. And then they took me back to the field hospital in Camp Bastion, and the surgeons, I was a mess. Like everything, these weren't clean amputations. These were traumatic ones. So they just chopped me up where they needed to chop me up and then sent me home Christmas morning, where I got back into Birmingham about 4 a.m. Christmas Day.
So that was the start of your Christmas that year. Yeah, I just want to pay a big respect to those frontline medics and any medics, military or domestic. I think they need praise as well. And you're right, a lot of spotlights does get shined on, your frontline anywhere. But we have these emergency services, we have these medics and fantastic doctors and nurses and various types of people that work in that world. So yeah, big respect to them as well. And I'm so glad they've done their job. Yeah. And you're here, as I say, you're a fantastic inspiration to me. And you've went on to live such a fantastically, what I see as a fulfilled life. You motivate me heavily. You actually make me feel ashamed sometimes when I don't make it to the gym. As I say, I've watched a lot of your videos, and anybody that listened to this, go and check out Mark's, YouTube videos, Instagrams, supporter accounts on Facebook, just for the fact that, the way you train, the way you exercise. Can we talk a little bit about that? Is that possible? Because you've went from receiving those injuries, which made you a triple amputee, to go on to living this absolutely fantastically fulfilled life. And I just wondered if we can talk about that transition to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the number one thing for me, and this took a little bit of time. It's not like an instant wake up in hospital and this is my attitude, but the whole gratitude thing was quite big, right? And perspective, and I was the UK's first triple amputee from Afghanistan, and I don't think there'd been a combat casualty since the First World War that had survived the loss of 3 limbs. And in the beginning, I'll be honest, I felt really hard done by. I was 24 years old. I was 6'2". I was 16 stone of just muscle and diesel power. And now I was like 9 stone 1. I'm 4'2", still 24, with a long life ahead of me, just trying to figure out what I'm going to do. And I was injured very early on as well. I was one of the only ones around, but unfortunately, lads started coming thick and fast after that. Lads were getting blown up left, right, and center. So I was meeting a lot of people in rehab, and in the beginning, I used to get quite annoyed because someone would come in with like one leg missing, and within a week they got a leg on, they're walking, and I used to be like, I wish that was me. I wish I just had that injury so I could get out there and get back to life normally. But then I started meeting guys who were worse off than me. So because I was a triple amputee, I was what they call high dependency. Instead of being in a 6-man room when I went from hospital to rehab, I was in a single man room behind the nurse's station, and there were 4 rooms. And the first day I got to rehab, I was in room 4. So you had to go past 1, 2, and 3 to get to 4. And I got to room 1 was empty. And I got to room 2 and there was a curtain across. Room 3 was empty and I went to my room. Later on, I came back and I saw the guy in room 2. He was 19 years old. He had a hand grenade go off next to his head. He had a massive portion of his skull removed. And that night, all he did was scream. And I hesitate to say this, but I'm trying to give a good description of how it sounded. And there's no humor in this whatsoever, but it was like, he sounded like Chewbacca. That's how he screamed all night, just like screaming. And I had to put earphones in that night. And I'm like, I'm pretty lucky, really. I've got no traumatic brain injuries, no facial scars, none of that. And so that really put things in perspective for me. And I started to feel quite grateful for my situation. And then I was going through rehab and I was struggling because no one in my team really knew what to do with me because they'd not dealt with a triple amputee before. They'd had doubles, but when you got both arms, it's a lot easier to do things than it is when you just got one arm, especially when it's not your dominant one. I lost my dominant arm. So we're muddling our way through and we're constantly coming up against these brick walls. And I got to this point when I'm like, do you know what? I'm done. Just give me a wheelchair. Give me somewhere to live. I'm just going to go back and I'm going to exist. And I was feeling sorry for myself. This is when I was learning to walk, right? And my groin was just like shredded and bleeding. And there were blisters on my leg and my back just felt like it was going to snap. And I was exhausted, like 7 hours rehab every day. And I'm like, I'm done. See ya. Give me the wheelchair. I'm going home. And then I bumped into a friend of mine who was also a Royal Marine, and his dad was actually one of my instructors when I was going through training. Now, he had been in Norway training to fight in the Arctic, and just for a bit of fun, he was going to dive in the snow and do a snow angel. And he headbutted a rock and became tetraplegic as a result. And we sat there having dinner. And when I left, I thought to myself, we're in this situation here, right, where I've got no legs, but I've got prosthetic legs. And if I stop being a bitch and I just work through the pain, I've got the opportunity and the privilege to be able to walk again. Dom has his legs, but they're never going to work again. Now, if I was him and he was me and I was looking at me complaining because I had a sore groin and a sore back, I'd be so angry. And I'd feel then the way I feel when I look at a guy with one leg. And that massively changed my mindset. I'm like, how can I just give up when this guy would swap places with me in a heartbeat and he would do the hard work and he would go through the pain because he knows he has that opportunity. You got the best prosthetics in the world here. My legs cost 90 grand. I'm given the best kit, the best facilities, the best teams. I've just got to get on with it. He's never going to have that chance. And that really changed things for me. So the whole attitude of gratitude came around and I just started appreciating things like, no facial scars, no brain injuries. Excuse me for getting a bit lower in the tone a bit, but all my junk works right and it's still there. I've not got anything missing down there, which is a big thing for a man, right?
100%.
And I've had 2 other kids all the old-fashioned way because of that. And so you start being grateful for all these things. Do you know what I mean? And even I don't know if anyone listening will be watching this as well, but I've got a big scar on my left hand, so I nearly lost my left hand as well. So you got to be grateful for that. Do you know what I mean? And it changes the way.
Powerful. I think it's so powerful being grateful, and I can't speak on your situation because you've been through such an ordeal. But many facets of the world, I speak to different people, and gratitude comes up so much. I think it's a superpower, being grateful for things that you do have.
And do you notice who the most unhappy people in the world are? It's the ungrateful ones. And you just look around society, and the last 12 months have been a perfect example of it. Everyone's just focusing on the negative in their life. Oh, I can't go to the pub. Oh, I can't go to Primark. Oh, my kids are home from school. Oh, my life's terrible. Well, not really. Not if you look at it a different way. I struggled massively with homeschooling, but I've never spent more time with my kids, time that I'd never get to spend with them had this not happened. Do you know what I mean? Oh, I can't go to the pub. Who cares? Find a different hobby. Watch Netflix. Don't drink. Do something more empowering and healthy and good for your body. Maybe. I don't know.
Absolutely.
Just be grateful that you got a roof over your head, you're breathing fresh air, you're not going out dodging bullets every day. Do you know what I mean? It's like, but I think we're just programmed. Our default is to go straight to the negative. And it's not easy to do just, I sound all happy clappy like it's easy. Just look at the good things. It's not that easy. It's a mindset shift. Do you know what I mean? And once you make that shift, the world looks different.
Absolutely. So once you've became, and you've becoming more grateful, and you're noticing these things to be grateful for, and that empowered you to go forward and really make these prosthetic limbs work for you.
Absolutely. And you know what? Out of every bad situation, if you look hard enough, you can find a good. And the amount of opportunities that came to I think this is going to sound strange, but I think I got injured at the perfect time because the media were all over it. And so every other weekend or every other night, we're at rehab, we're going to James Bond premieres and celebrity award evenings in London, and just having the time of my life doing these things that I would never get to do if I had not been injured, and just living it, and all these opportunities came off it, the books and the projects and everything. It's just like, I kind of know where my career would have hopefully went had I not been injured, but I don't think I'd have had as great a life as I have now had it gone down that way. So there's opportunity in adversity.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you come on for these prosthetics. I've seen you doing some amazing feats of exercise, and you've been part of this Invictus Games and things like that. That's no matter what you do, exercise, going to the gym, being an Olympian, being part of these sort of games and things like that, it takes real dedication. But they're amazing feats that you're doing, as a triple amputee and using these prosthetics. I've seen some of the workouts I've watched you doing, even the jiu-jitsu. I'm sweating watching them, and for you to be performing these, and can you just tell us a bit about you going into the sort of athleticism, your jiu-jitsu, your training regimes and things like that, and the mindset that you need to be doing that, especially being, the triple amputee and using these prosthetics.
So I'm going to go back to what I said just now. It's gratitude. Do you know what I mean? I wish everyone thought it this way, and they were just grateful for the unbelievable body that they're gifted with at birth, that they don't really use to its full potential. But obviously everything I do is adapted. But we live in 2021. There's kit, equipment, there's very clever people that when you get your heads together, you can figure anything out. So I've got legs specifically designed for running. I've got legs specifically designed for swimming. Legs that are specifically designed for, my stubby legs. They're not really specifically designed for anything, but they're multi-use things that aren't expensive. I use them for deadlifting, CrossFit. I can take them in a swimming pool. I could go hiking with them on. I can change all my arms up. I've got different hand attachments I can use for all sorts of different training. And you just figure it out as you go. Sometimes you wear prosthetics, sometimes you don't. I don't wear anything swimming. I just put some Speedos and goggles on and I'm gone. Jiu-jitsu, don't wear any prosthetics for that. Just a gi, belt, and I'm gone. And you just figure it out as you go. And every single person is slightly different. So you could put 10 triple amputees in a room and we'll all do something slightly differently, the way that suits us best. And you have to, because when your body stops moving, it just starts rotting. I'm not saying go out and do an Ironman every day and just break yourself, but you've got to just keep moving that body, keep getting stronger and fitter and, doing what it's designed to do. Open your lungs, get your heart beating and just have a good sweat. you know, as
What I
much as you
admire
can.
deeply is the no excuses. There's just no excuses with you. I just don't see the excuses, and I see it in everyday society. I see people making excuse after excuse as to why they're not where they want to be or doing the things that they want to do. But yet, here's yourself. I mean, absolutely excelling in many fields.
But what can't you do, right? So here's my next big thing, right? Over the last 10 years, all the goals I set myself every year, I'm quite proud to say I've achieved like 90% of them. But I went in the military from school. What I'm really keen to do now is blow up in business, right? And I want to earn a lot of money, but not because I want a lot of money, but because I want to show people that with a smartphone and the right idea and the right plan and taking action, you can run a business with one hand. You could be locked in a room with one hand. As long as you got a Wi-Fi connection that's strong enough and the right idea, you can do it. And it came about. I was watching my son. I'm watching YouTubers, and then I went on this website called Social Blade, and I saw how much these guys earn making videos, and I'm like, these guys are just having fun, and they're doing what they love doing, and they make more than the CEO of top company like Barclays Bank or H. These guys are making multiple seven figures a year. And then you start looking into it, and it's like this is serious. Like if you're passionate about making jam, right? And you make a YouTube channel and an Instagram account, and you produce good enough content that reaches other people that are passionate about jam, say 100,000 people, and they subscribe to your YouTube channel and they subscribe to your Instagram, and then you start making your own jam and then your merchandise, you could be turning over 100 grand a year talking about jam. It's insane. It's nuts, right? So there's really no excuses why someone with no legs and his weak left arm, who's got a mobile phone and a Wi-Fi connection, can't earn 6 figures a year or 6 figures a month running a business online. No reason why not, because I've got no disadvantage over an able-bodied person, I don't think.
And if nobody can get inspired by that, unsubscribe to my podcast show. And that's the truth. Do you know what? Yeah, I really admire you. I'm really impressed by you. I'm inspired by you. And as I said, some of the things I've seen you do is just fantastic. There was one thing I seen that was really, really impressive in my mind, because I love America. Did you run from one side of America to the other? Was it New York,
that
LA?
jersey is. Yeah, it was called the Gumpathon, named after Forrest. Right. 3,563 miles from New York to LA. Now, I didn't do it on my own. I was part of a team of 5 other military guys. But yeah, we just did a leapfrog relay for 63 days.
See, that's a journey, and as much as I love America and I would love to go across here, for me, it will have to be in a car or a motorbike.
I want to do it again.
Yeah, I love the States and I love that. And when I read that story, I thought, gee, I need to ask that, because I'm sure somewhere along the line that won't be true. But then I thought to myself, knowing Mark, it probably will be true,
Yeah, that's the T-shirt there from it, the red one.
Right. Mm-hmm. So you've 2 other fantastic things I want to touch on as well. You're an MBE. Tell me about that. Not many people get these accolades, and I know they only give out a very small amount every year. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how you received that?
Yeah, I mean, so I left the Marines in July 2010, and I was very lucky that I got a phone call from a retired brigadier. Literally, actually, I left in July 2010. September 2010, I was going to America for that run. And he rang me and said, would you like a job working with what was back then called the Royal Marines Association, which is now the Royal Marines Charity? So I said, yes, sir, I would love one. I don't know what I'm going to do in my life. What would you like me to do? He said, I don't know. We'll make something up. So it was just their way of looking after me. And they brought me in and they created a job for me. They let me go out on the run. And then we actually raised money for them in return. I think they got 25 grand. It was split between 4 different charities. And then I spent the last 10 years, I actually retired in February this year, working with Royal Marines and the Royal Marines family. So the MBE was as a result of, I think it was called Services to the Royal Marines and the wider veteran community. just because I work with a lot of military charities. You know, that black jersey there was from 2 years after the run. We did a bike ride around the UK, just over 3,000 miles again, hand cycling, and all these other things, skydives, wing walks, bungee jumps, parachutes, everything, just across the tri-service military sector. And then last year I got a letter from the palace saying, you're going to get an MBE for it, which was, it was humbling, but also a little bit, I don't think embarrassing is the right word, but the way I looked at it is I was getting rewarded for doing what I absolutely loved, which was being around the military, being around veterans, helping people if I could, challenging myself, raising money. You know, it's not like it was hard to me. It was just, it kept me in that environment. It's quite selfish, really, because it kept me in that environment I love being in. It gave me a job I could provide for my family, and then I was being rewarded for it. So it was really humbling, you know, to be like, you're going to reward me for doing something that I get a lot of pleasure from. And I think that's what made it extra special for me.
Yeah, in my opinion, it's very well deserved. But I also think you've sort of raised a valid point there about how it felt for you and doing the job you love. But I think that will also push on other people that you can get these things and nice accolades and be respected and noticed for actually just following your passion and doing what you love. And that's so important. I think a lot of people are very scared to follow their passion, whereas here's you've absolutely flew into it and done all you can, and you've been awarded for it. And I truly believe, you deserve that. So absolutely congratulations for that. And yeah, definitely well deserved. There was another thing. I seen, you're a very handsome man, Mark, okay? But I seen that thing.
Oh, thank you.
Tom Hardy.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe, playing a sort of a life role for yourself. And how did that sit with you, and how did that conversation even come about?
Do you mean with the movie?
Yeah.
Yeah. So someone asked me before I ever met Tom a couple of years ago, they said, if anyone was going to play you in a movie, who would you like? And I became a big fan of Tom's when I was actually in hospital, and all I could do was watch TV, and someone brought me the Bronson DVD. I'd never seen him before. And I'm like, who the hell is this guy? He's insanely good at acting. Like I'm sure you've seen the film. It's brilliant. And then I became like an instant fan. And then this whole idea of a movie came up, and they said, who would you like to play you? And I said him. And now, bizarrely, he's not going to play me. But we're connected. We're friends, and we're both trustees of the same charity. We train together, and it's insane the way. That's what I said earlier. These opportunities and these chances come up, and life becomes amazing if you just take it and you run with what you're passionate about.
Oh, that's absolutely amazing. It's a really cool story. I actually seen Tom on your website as well. So, Mark, I'm sure anyone listening to this would be, very, very inspired by your story. Would want to follow you. Where can we sort of find you and more stuff about Mark? Where's your book? What is your book? Where's your social medias at, and your supporters clubs? Can you just tell us a little bit about where we can find you?
Yeah, I've got a website, which is www.markormrod.com. You can get the book. I've got a small merchandise range called No Limits, hoodies and t-shirts and that kind of stuff with some motivational quotes in the back. And then I'm pretty much on all the social channels. My handle is the same across the board. It's at Mark Ormrod. And in fact, talking about business and earning and trying to show people what's possible, I've just started a supporters page on Facebook, where if you go onto my professional Facebook page, it's got one of the blue ticks on it. At the top, there's a little blue box that says "Book Supporter," and people pay like a subscription of £3.49 a month, and then I create an income stream for that, which means I can go off and do these crazy fundraising things and all these other things where I'm trying to help people, and I don't have to try and get a quote unquote proper job, because I can create an income from that. And that's great. I've got 105 people on there right now. It's growing great. And it's really helped me to get to where I want to be. And I was having a conversation earlier with a lady actually who's a member of the group who's going to help me grow it. And she was asking me about what my aim is and all that. And obviously, initially, you need to create an income to provide for your family. But this thing is so scalable. I mean, if you got 100,000 people on there paying £3.49 a month, it's silly money.
Yeah.
But imagine all the good you can do with that.
No,
Imagine all the veterans and emergency services people or anyone you can help.
no, absolutely.
Do you know what I mean?
We'll definitely.
So that's the aim.
I think it's a great thing that you're doing and you have there. I always finish the podcast on two things. We've talked a lot about the past. We've talked a lot about the present. Any advice for the future, even if it's your future self or anybody in the audience? What's your advice for going forward, especially during the times that we're in just now?
Okay, we'll cover that first then. So with the difficult times, the first thing I think is to understand, and we're seeing this now, that these things don't last forever. They're only ever temporary. And what's exciting about them, I had this conversation the other day that I get excited when adversity strikes because I know I'm always going to come out the other side of it a better person, stronger, fitter, faster, smarter, more giving, more generous, more grateful. So there's that, it won't last forever. And we're all going to come out the other end of this better, I think, than when we went in. Yeah. Get yourself around good people. You've always got to do that. You've always got to have it's better to have a tight, powerful circle than be the popular guy surrounded by morale vampires and people that aren't interested or haven't got your best interest at heart. And God, I've got so much I could talk about. You just got, in life in general, I think you've always got to have goals. You've got to have something to strive for, something to get out of bed for, something to aim for, and a positive path to push yourself down. Because otherwise we just float. And then you wake up at 60 years old thinking, what have I been doing in my life? Why didn't I take that chance? Why did I care what that person thought about my idea of making a YouTube jam channel because they laughed at me? Do you know what I mean? Just do the things that you want to do, that you're passionate about. Honestly, it's so corny, right? But we're not here for that long. And as someone who's already died once, I can tell you that when you do die, you want to do it with a smile on your face, at peace, knowing that you've made the most of your time here. I did that the first time round and I was only 24. By the time I get to 116, which is how long I plan to live, I'll have a big ass smile on my face and would have done a lot of good things. So have confidence, believe in yourself, do what you're passionate about, and just squeeze every ounce out of life that you can.
I agree, and I think they're great words. And the very last one that I ask every single guest is, and the reason why as well, MindKite, we're all about inspiration, mindset, and mental health. I think personally, every single person on this planet has an inspirational story, whether they know it or not. And what I ask my guests is, if you can nominate one other person forward to keep this message going, and I'll try my hardest to get them on my podcast show, who would that person be? An inspiration or someone that, you value quite highly?
You could have prepped me for that question, couldn't you?
No, listen, that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of it. It's a little bit cheeky, but it's good to pass on the message of inspiration. And I think a lot of people don't even know that they have an inspirational story, but I believe everyone does,
Okay, so I'm going to stick to my little bubble, I guess, if you like. But I interviewed someone for my podcast the other day. She lives in Plymouth here. Her name's Doa. She's from Yemen. She has MS. She's in a wheelchair. She's a wheelchair racer. She's I always get the term wrong, like beauty therapist. She's in the beauty world. And we had a great chat about her life. And I'm always fascinated by the mindset of someone who's been disabled from birth and all the challenges they face going through school and bullying and that kind of stuff and overcoming obstacles as a child. I had the great fortune of being 24 when I got whacked and become disabled. So she'd be perfect.
Absolutely. That's great. Listen, Mark, thank you very much for coming on the show. It's been amazing. It's beyond what I thought it was going to be, and just hearing your first-hand account of life in general and seeing everything you've gone through. And thank you so much for joining me. You're a true inspiration to myself and I'm sure many thousand others.
No problem. My pleasure.
So there we have it, people. Another episode of the MindKite Podcast. Make sure if you liked what you've seen today, give Mark a follow, give us a share, like, and subscribe to the page. And remember, the app's out, so make sure you join the app. See you next time. Bye.